They think I'm dead. I got to tell them, Mama's okay. Mama's okay. And I tried to speak and I could just go, blah, 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 blah. I could not talk. And I could hear myself and realizing that I could not talk. And I was like, oh, I am dead. Correct. So I was married for 13 years. And year so domestic violence is so different for every person. The story of how things play out is so vast. And sometimes you say domestic violence, and everybody is like, oh, he beat on you every day, or, he locked you in the closet, or it's different for every person. And so, because it's so wide, my husband did not beat on me. We had probably three major events in our marriage, but I think he was unloving. He got baptized, but I believe he got baptized. Well, Lord, let me start from the beginning of the story. So terrible. A man that
You're
I
good.
met, we knew each other for about 2 months, and I found out I was pregnant. I had already had my oldest son by the drug addict fella that we went to church with. I was trying to move away from that relationship and couldn't. I was in a cycle of we weren't together. We'd get together for a little bit. He would do drugs, steal my things. We'd have to break up again. So I met this new young man and I said, he seems like a nice guy. He's gentlemanly. He's not charismatic like my oldest son's father. He's just a simple jock, like he's a nice guy. Well, within 3 months, I was pregnant. And he knew that I was a church girl. He had come to church with me on a regular basis. He had gotten baptized during this time, and I was like, oh, wow, God, you're doing it for me. Of course, still having sex. Him, he ended up moving in with me. But I'm thinking, God, you're doing it. He got baptized. Like, this is great. And so as time progressed, he was like, I don't want you to feel bad. I don't want your church people, your choirs, all of them to look at you differently because I had already explained what had happened the first time. I don't want to live like this. And he's like, I don't want you to be shame or whatever. We should get married. And I was like, about that. And and the conversation has been um, through church people, unfortunately, the way to correct a pregnancy is to get married. And so the majority of church people were like, that's great, you should. That's how you do it. You get married. Get married. And I'm like, I've known him 3 months, and it's like, but I mean, I thought I loved him, and so I was like, this is great. This isn't the classic way that God wanted to play it out, but look what God is doing in my life. Well, I met him in December. I was pregnant in April. We got married in June, and my middle baby was born in December. A lot of stuff going on. Boom, boom, boom. And about 6 months later, um, you know, he's working a late job, and we're arguing um, because he was dating other people and spending our house money on other people. And I'm at home with the baby because I can't work and pay daycare, like we can't afford it. And I got a 5-year old now. And so, and through this argument, he strangled me. And this scenario was a little different. We were sitting chair to chair and we were arguing, and I was like, where is the money going? The lights are getting ready to get cut off. We're in my apartment, but my apartment, we're finna lose the apartment. But where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? Where's the money? And he just kind of pushed me. I was sitting in a chair, and he pushed me back and strangled me. And in the second, I remember seeing a bright light and hearing children swing on a swing and hearing children sing. And it probably happened in a matter of about 10 seconds. And then my eyes never closed, but I took a deep breath. And he was staring, looking at me like, you talk all the time, say something, say something. So I'm sure he knew I was gone for a couple of seconds. And I immediately understood what happened and just started crying. And my son, who was at home, run down the hallway and he's like, leave my mama alone. So I'm panicking and I'm like, there's only one way in and one way out of the apartment. And I'm like, I got to get my baby that's in the car carriage and get my 5-year-old and get out of here. And he was like, you're not taking that baby. And I was like, it was just so traumatic a moment. And my son's crying, I'm crying, the baby is asleep, but he's in the carriage. And I'm like, I ended up grabbing my 5-year-old and running out of the house. And I was just believing that he was going to hurt my middle baby. Called the police, called my mama, called my sisters, called my brother-in-laws, 15 people outside, and he's arrested. And I did not file charges. In the moment, I could not comprehend that my husband, the person who I was supposed to love and who was
Wow.
supposed to love me, would put his hands around my throat. And the process of this was probably about 3 to 6 weeks, and we moved back home together. It was an accident. I was yelling at him. I was yelling. I was elevated. I elevated the situation, and so it was my fault. And so my family did not feel that way. My family was very angered with me, but I was grown and I was determined, and it was an accident, and this was my husband. And when you get married, you don't get divorced. And, I'm still dealing, it's so many other overlapping, dealing with sexual issues. So now I'm finally having sex that's honored by God by being covered in a marriage. If I leave him, who am I going to have sex with? Because God doesn't honor that with anybody else. I,
Mm.
and to some people that may not be a big deal, but to somebody, I know you understand what I'm saying. And it's like I have been programmed. I got to do this because I would have headaches. I would have muscle spasms. If we, that's all me and him had, you know. And so it was just processing all of that. That was incident one. Incident two, um, he pushed me and I got knives out. And I was like, I'm not going to die like you killed me the last time. I'm going to fight because I was like, I'm determined to fight. The last time I did not fight, I'm going to fight. This is probably 9 years later. So this is not this is 9 years. That was year one of our marriage. 9 years later, he pushes me on the bed and I just immediately start screaming and crying because I'm like, you killed me the first time. You're not going to kill me this time. And he was calm this time. So this whole scenario did not escalate as big. But we had already had another baby. So now we've got three crying kids while we're screaming at each other. I call my mama, I call my sister, I call my brother-in-laws, I call the police, all of that. And I think I moved back in with my mother this time, which had become my pattern. I'd move back in with my mother, and then I moved back with my husband. I miss my family. I miss my children. He would start being the man that I've been asking him to be. And so, and I was like, he's doing it now. He's better now. Still cheating, still not using the money properly, just light switchy. One day like me, next day don't. And so that carries me to the very last and final scenario. By this time, we're doing good in life. We got a 4-bedroom house. All of the kids have their own rooms. We got a 2-car garage. I'm working a decent job now instead of just being at home and completely depending on him. He's working for RJ Reynolds, which is a really big company in North Carolina, cigarette factory. Like you have to be prestigious somewhat in order to have this type of career. And I had just gotten to the point where, the pattern was I'd move home, I'd find out he's cheating, somebody would call me, it'd be a whole blow up. And I was like, I'm not doing this. And I would pack up all my kids and move in with my mama, sleep on my mama's couch for about a month. And if anybody that's an adult knows what it's like to live back with your parents, that ain't gonna last long. And then also dealing with sexual habits. And so it's like, are you really gonna be celibate? Are you really gonna What about your kids? They need their father, no matter who he is, they need it for it. Just so many things that play into why people go back. You hear a lot of people say, she went back, it's her fault. She deserved it. She should have got beat on. You knew he would. It's so much deeper than that. There's so many different levels and different scenarios for each person. But we were doing well. You going to church a little bit, you know. But I had gotten to the point where I was like, I'm tired of you cheating. I'm concerned that I you're going to give me something and I'm going to die, and you will be left to be the one to take care of our children. He was mean, unloving, and not just to me, to our kids. So, but again, I'm like, well, I'm a woman. I don't know how to raise a man. I got 3 boys. I don't know how to raise a man. And so it's like maybe his harshness is how a man is supposed to be. I don't know what. Okay, I got to let him be a man. And in retrospect, I realized he was a lot harsher than he should have been. I was just thinking he was being a man. If he got too violent or jack up a child too hard, I would try to step in and be like, "That's enough." But it was just a lot of turmoil. But I had gotten to the point where I was like, "Okay, God, either you change him or you get me out of this." That was my prayer. This is probably maybe the eighth time that I have moved out and moved back in. And he would behave for a while, and then I would look up and I'd be like, I am right back in the same place. How did I get here again? You tricked me again. And I would be I was like, God, I would go to sleep listening to sermons. I was like, I don't know where else to go. I was ashamed to ask my parents to help me again. And I didn't want to tell anybody that all of this bad stuff was going on because I felt bad because I got us back here. And so during this time, I made a decision that I would stop having sex with him. And our relationship was nothing but sex. We would be angry at each other, don't like each other. He would get caught cheating, whatever it is, we still had sex. I would just push it to the back of my mind. I was like, this is my husband. And if I pray hard enough, the Lord will change him and he will be the man that I need. I just have to hold on. And that was some of the advice that I would get from some older church ladies as well. He'll get tired. Now I chuckle now because I'm like, that's ridiculous. But he'll get tired. Hold on. Them children need their daddy. And I just made a decision that I wasn't going to have sex with him anymore. He had, by this time, maybe once or twice, he didn't come home. And I had kind of gotten to the point where I didn't argue anymore. And, he would call and I'm like, why are you calling me? You did what you wanted to do. I'm good. Me and the kids are on the way to church. Click. Like I checked out. And so I got to the point I started taking sleeping pills to go to sleep at night because he was a super athlete. He played football, he played basketball, he did golf, he did he bowled, he was on a bowling league, anything to avoid your family. So he would come back from the leagues at 11 o'clock at night. So I'd get home, everybody take a bath, everybody do your homework, get in bed, all the kids are in the bed. I would take sleeping pills and try to go to sleep around 10 o'clock. So by the time he got back home, I didn't have to interact with him. And it got to the point where he started getting furious. He recognized that our relationship was nothing but sex. So how is Jamie not having sex with me? Like, what? It's been a week. It's been 2 weeks. It's been 3 weeks. It's been a month. It's been 2 months. And then he would come in and he would be like, are we tonight? And I, no. Are we? And I don't know. I can't speak for his psyche, but that was not our dynamic. And it had gotten to the point where he was just furious with me anytime he saw me. Middle of the day on a Monday, I go in, feed the kids, we do homework. They go upstairs, he comes downstairs, and this time I had started coloring in order to try to calm my nerves because I was dealing with anxiety with dealing with him. I don't know who I'm gonna get today, you know. And he sits down at the table and he's just looking at me and he's like, I can't stand you. And, I was like, he's in a mood, don't talk. So I just kept coloring. He took everything I had and threw it and pushed me down on my kitchen floor and climbed on top of me and sat on my stomach and strangled me. And it was just the force. I still kind of have a burn mark on my neck of the force that he was shaking me to strangle me. And in this moment in my mind, I said, I'm going to fight. I was like, I didn't fight the first time. I didn't get to fight the second time. I got to fight. I got to fight. So I'm just hitting him. I'm scratching his face. I'm trying to poke his eyes out. And he just was locked in. And I just remember, I'm trying not to cry. I'm sorry. I tell this story
Go ahead,
so
sis.
much, and I just remember trying to say Jesus. That was the last word that I said. And I remember all I said was G. And I was gone. I was gone. And he took me and drug my body into the garage and laid me beside my car. And I learned all of this afterwards, but I was probably out about 45 minutes. And he went upstairs, and the kids didn't hear the commotion. They didn't know what was going on, but I had scratched his face. He had blood on his shirt. And my oldest, through the years, he was like, I saw him. He had blood on his shirt and he was just pacing back and forth. Me and my brothers were all in the room and he was just pacing and he kept looking at us. Now, I don't know if he was like, am I going to have to do something to them? Or if he was just panicking. I don't know. I can't speak to what his mind was thinking. But he changed his clothes and jumped in the car, and they said they could hear his wheels spin out of the driveway. So what he did at the time, we didn't have a house phone. Again, he wasn't good at paying bills. We didn't have a house phone. My oldest son at the time was 16 and he was on punishment because he had gotten in trouble at school and had a cell phone. And we had taken his cell phone because he was on punishment. And earlier in the day, I said, I'm proud of you. You've been doing good. I'm going to give you your phone back. Don't tell your dad or stepdad, but I'm going to give you your phone back. He didn't know I gave him the phone. So he left the kids at the house. He called his brother and a young lady who was a friend to our family and said, get to the house and get the kids. And they were like, why? Why? Just get to the house and get the kids. And he left. And my son, he took my phone and put it in the trash can and took food out of the refrigerator and covered it up, powered it off so that nobody would find it, cleaned up the kitchen, all of that, and before he left. And when I came to, and again, behind the scenes, I'm learning later, my oldest son found me. And so, of course, the little brothers are on their heels and they knew exactly that it was him. If anybody knows about strangulation, it will cause your eyes to come out of your head. And I bit through my tongue, and I think he sprained my wrist from dragging my body. And so when I came, he called 911, and 911 told him to roll me on my side and I think like do chest compressions or something. And so when I came to, I remember opening my eyes and seeing that I was in the garage, and I immediately knew everything kind of came back to me as to what happened. And I could hear my kids' feet running and everybody is just screaming. They're screaming and crying. And I realized my body was dead weight. I could not talk. I could not walk. I could barely open my eyes, although my eyes were open, if that makes any sense. And I was like, they think I'm dead. They think I'm dead. I got to tell them, Mama's okay. Mama's okay. And I tried to speak and I could just go, blah, 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 blah. I could not talk. And I could hear myself and realizing that I could not talk. And I was like, oh, I am dead, And I said, okay, let me get up. Let me get up off this concrete floor. And I realized my body, it was dead weight. I could not move. So now I'm kind of mumbling and kicking my feet, trying to say, I'm alive, y'all, I'm alive. And I could hear the ambulance coming. And I had gone to the bathroom on myself, which is, I understand now, when someone is strangled, when they pass over to the other side, when they're gone, they let go of all of their faculties. And so I couldn't understand all of this. And I was in my mind, I was like, God, sorry. I was like, God, I'm not gonna be a vegetable. I'm gonna walk, I'm gonna talk. So I just kept like I can talk. I know I can talk. You're gonna let me talk. We're gonna talk. I'm gonna be fine. And at this time, the garage door has opened, and my mama, my sister, her friend, and my daddy was there. And so I'm mumbling and trying to move to say, y'all, I'm not dead. And my dad came and placed his hand on my shoulder, and he said, everything is going to be okay. And that's so impactful on so many levels because my God,
Wow.
my God said everything is going to be okay.